Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Nexus Forum talks. Today, we will talk about on engaging in EU public consultations, a practical guide for the first-time participants. My name is Tajana Medakovic from F-Success. I will introduce you today to this project, providing a brief overview, but also to two more speakers who will get into more nitty-gritties of the public consultations and why they matter. This will be a 1 hour session. We will start with laying over the basic context of this webinar and why it's also important to us. Then we will get into the more specificities on the consultations process, on how to actually engage, why it matters, and also some other ways on how you can actually engage within the project. So concretely, this webinar aims to address the current gaps in engaging in public consultations because it has been recognized by the European Commission that there is not sufficient participation of the relevant stakeholders in public consultations as is. So the idea is actually to explain to you today what they are in the first place and why they matter, and specifically why they matter for our ecosystem and digital technologies. We'll also guide you a little bit on how Nexus Forum project works and how we're providing some structured stakeholder input, how you can join us if you wish to do so. And again, we'll provide practical guidance on how both individuals and organizations can actually participate in the public consultations. At the end, we'll also share how you can join the project and also engage in the future public consultations. Allow me just a moment. Okay, I had some technical difficulties. Okay, so what is Nexus Forum project about? We're actually trying to boost the consolidation of the research and policy along the entire European computing continuum. We are doing so by involving different stakeholders, organizing events, inputs, with different initiatives and other projects within the ecosystem in creation of this new vision for the new directions of the EU Cloud Edge IoT ecosystem. More specifically, what we are trying to do is to create this strategic outlook on the cognitive computing continuum by partnering with IPSA-CIS, European Alliance for Industrial Data Edge and Cloud, and also providing strategic documents, so annual research, innovation roadmaps, and policy recommendations that are in these 3 years of the project that we have been carrying it out, identifying gaps and challenges through different synergies that we created. What is also relevant for this project is that we have been actively engaging the wider ecosystem. So not only in European Union or Europe, but also with a special focus on Japan and South Korea. We'll talk a little bit more about how we engage the research and industry ecosystem, and again, how you can become part of this ecosystem as well. So we're getting to why your voice actually matters. So in this policymaking cycle, the contribution of stakeholders, both as individuals or as representatives of the companies, are actually the ones who are providing real life and real work experience and actually being able to provide their relevant experience in shaping the future policies, but also evaluating existing interventions. So we will get a bit more into depth of this, but just a second, I think one of our speakers has dropped out of the call. Hunkal, I hope you can hear us.
Yeah, I can. I think
Okay.
it's one of my colleagues using the link. Sorry.
Okay, I see. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so In order to provide some wider overview on why your voice matters and how this policy making works, we will showcase you a very short video before going into more details on how it reflects in our ecosystem.
Did you know that everybody can contribute to EU policy making? The European Commission wants to write high-quality, evidence-based laws and policy proposals and be open and transparent about it. The Commission is always open to your opinion and starts listening before we pick up the pen to write a proposal. Citizens can always give their feedback, even after laws are in force. So how can you give the Commission your opinion? The EU Commission listens to you at every step of the policy-making cycle. So what does this consultation process look like? Let's take an example. In 2016, the Commission identified a gap in the EU rules on pensions. There were no common EU rules for consumers. So it wrote a roadmap outlining the issue and asked citizens to comment for a period of 4 weeks. Tom, an EU citizen with a personal interest in retirement savings, was very happy to share his experience, providing concrete ideas on how to solve the problem. The Commission analysed the feedback submitted by Tom and other citizens and got back to work to translate those ideas into more concrete policy options. These options were then presented in a public consultation in the form of a simple online questionnaire open for 12 weeks. Tom could see that the Commission had taken on board his suggestions, and he joined the consultation to express his views on the presented options. On the basis of the contributions received, the Commission was able to draft a proposed law for a pan-European private pension system which met the citizens' real needs. The proposal was sent to the European Parliament and Council, who are in charge of debating and adopting the law. But it was also made public so that citizens had 8 weeks to give more comments. All the opinions submitted at this stage were sent to the European Parliament and Council so that they could take them into account during their legislative work. But our consultation does not stop here. Sometimes technical provisions or updates are needed to EU laws. They are adopted through delegated and implementing acts. Citizens and stakeholders can also send their feedback on these draft texts for a period of 4 weeks. But what if you wanted to share an idea about a law that is already in force? Isn't that too late? No. On the contrary, we want to hear what works and what doesn't, and listen to suggestions on how laws can be improved so we can change them if need be. Therefore, anyone at any time can give feedback or share his or her ideas through Lighten the Load, a tool created for citizens to share their experiences on how laws affect their daily lives. The European Commission is always open to your opinions. So why don't you visit the Have Your Say portal and make your voice heard?
Okay, so this was a short video on how it looks like in a more general settings. So on the level of the, let's say, regular citizens covering all sort of broad topics, but we are getting back to the digital ecosystem. And I have the pleasure of two speakers joining me here today, Juncal Alonso Ibarra and Alberto Martí. Juncal, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Tayana. So yeah, I'm Juncal Alonso. I work in Tecnalia, a research center in the north of Spain, in the digital unit, and in Nexus Forum, we are leading the activities on policy engagement and alignment with policies towards the digital computing continuum. And today I will present some examples, concrete examples of public consultations that actually made a change on the policies and on the different acts. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Juncal. Before I give you the floor to continue, Alberto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, sure. Well, from my side, just to thank you for the invitation and to confirm that mean, today what I will explain from our side as a European technology company from Open Nebula Systems side is a practical example of how to influence or participate in a consultation for a specific strategy from the European Commission before, during, and after. So I hope people will find it interesting.
Okay, great. And also particularly useful, I would say, for all the experts that we have gathered today. Okay, so thank you, Juncal. Sorry, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I realized that I was mute. No, go back to
Sure.
the previous one, please. Yeah, no, because I want to give a little bit of overview of what I'm going to explain in this part of the session. So the idea today during this session is to make a practical view on how this input into the different European Commission consultations can actually change some of these rules that at the end we later have to live with. So today during my part of the session, I will use a few of some concrete examples from recent European policy files, focusing on the digital aspect and on the cybersecurity, to be more concrete on cybersecurity, cloud, data, and AI, which are the main topics that which are relevant for the Nexus Forum project, and where the consultation input can be linked and can be shown into practical change in the law. So please go ahead. Let's start first, before we go deep into the examples. I would like to have some words on the consultation life cycle, because the consultation life cycle has multiple moments where you can provide input, but these moments are not equal. So sometimes it is thought that this consultation happen mainly after the policy is written and the policy exists. But actually, many of these consultations and open, let's say, sessions happen before and during the drafting of the policy. So when we talk about these public consultations, we often imagine like a single moment where stakeholders can send comments. But in reality, this is a process. This is a process with different phases. And I think that understanding these phases can help in proposing relevant feedback that can lead into an actual change. So let's go through this process as it is explained here in the slide. It typically starts with this call for evidence. This is the very, very early stage where the Commission is still defining the problem, analyzing the issue, and studying the different directions. So at this point, the policy, I would say, is not fixed at all. Then we move into the public consultation phase, and this is usually done through the Have Your Say portal. And this is where the different stakeholders, the industry, the academy, the civil society, they can submit their views, their concerns, their requests. And now I think here is the critical transition. So because all this input goes into the analysis and the impact assessment. And here is where the Commission decides the different policy options that are feasible or viable, the definitions to use, the trade-offs that needs to be made. So this is the moment where the input actually can become policy. Of course, after that, the Commission produced this draft proposal of a law, an implementing act, or whatever, a guidance. And from there, it enters a revision and validation phase with usually internal consultation, expert groups consultation, where some adjustments can be done. And finally, we reach the adoption and implementation. So when the Commission is still in this drafting phases, the feedback has more chance to be considered. So, and once the file moves deeper into the co-legislator negotiations The input can still matter, it can still matter, but it's harder to do, and the traceability also becomes harder. So in order to be able to identify these early engagement windows that actually can become into specific outcomes in the policies, we will review now the 4 illustrative examples with different consultations means to see how this actually happens. So let's start with the first one, which is on the NIS2 directive. Diana, can you move forward? Yeah, so this is the first example I wanted to show today. This is on NIS2 directive, probably known by all of you or many of you today in the session, which is covering cloud services, data centers, DNS, other critical digital infrastructures. So almost 2 years ago, so in June 2024, as you can see there in the slide, in the screenshot, the European Commission published a draft implementing act. And this is important, it was a draft implementing act, so the rule was still open to change. And this draft included, in Article 3, it talked about the financial loss threshold to trigger reporting of cybersecurity incident. This initially was established on 100,000 euros as a threshold to trigger this incident. So it was meant to trigger reporting obligations when a concrete digital service suffered direct and quantifiable harm due to this cybersecurity incident. As we can imagine, even quite a small scale breach like phishing attack can easily exceed this number. If we consider this combined cost, especially in these cloud or data center environments where these systems can process thousands of transactions per second, because in this cost, you need to include the compensation for data breaches, the repair cost, lost revenue due to the service outages, or even the legal or regulatory fines you need to pay. Further than that, it also includes the reputational damage, so something that it's really hard to measure, especially if you need to do it in 24 hours, which was established in the law. So here, let's take this example of one of the stakeholders, in this case, the EXO, where several stakeholders are represented, and they provided some input to this draft act, and especially within this threshold, they said it was very low, and further than that, they recommended to be increased to a concrete specific figure, which was 500,000. And they also requested to remove the reputational damage because it's very subjective and it leads to inconsistent enforcement. So what happened? Well, at the end, it happened that this concrete feedback, and I want also to put the focus on the concrete feedback and not just general comments, was listened by the Commission, and when the Commission adopted the final rule in October 2024, the threshold was increased as requested, and the reputational damage trigger was removed from Article 3. So this is one first example of a concrete change made through these consultations. Let's go now to the second one. This one is about using the public consultation not just to shape the law itself, but also to shape the tools that make this law work in the real world, in practice. So this is about the Data Act, also probably known by all of you. So the European Commission in 2021 launched a very broad consultation to test the idea of cloud portability, which is part of this Data Act, known as the ability to move data between the different cloud platforms. But in this case, instead of the early input, the input was requested after the law was passed to ensure that the implementation tools actually work on the real world. So in 2025, the Commission hosted a series of webinars with businesses, different stakeholders, policymakers, technical experts, to review the draft model contract terms and the standard contract clauses of the contracts for cloud switching. Because at the end, the law's success depends on the contracts that the company needs to sign. So if these clauses are too complex, are unrealistic, are only considered one side, the companies, they cannot negotiate, they cannot, let's say, fulfill the policy goals. So that's why public consultation also at this level is powerful, not only at, let's say, at law level, but also at this implementing part of the law level. At the end, or as a result, by late 2025, the Commission released this package of standardized contract modules, and this covered switching, termination, security, business continuity, and other clauses like liability and others. And these were shaped collaboratively through this expert group and considering the feedback from this group of companies and associations that participated. This is different from the previous example because there the consultation helped to shape the law itself. And here it shaped the implementation layer. So the tools, the contracts that will influence that, or that will ensure that the law is accomplished. Let's move now to the third example. This is on the AI Act implementation and how the public consultation shapes the interpretation and the basic concepts in the early stages. So in this case, also in 2024, see the screenshot there, the Commission launched this consultation on two key areas. One, the definition of an AI system, and the second one, the prohibited AI practices. And here they are talking about social scoring, real-time biometric identification, these kind of things. So this was a large consultation with 88 questions, where nearly 400 stakeholders participated to consider the distribution of the types of stakeholders participating there. And from there, the feedback that was obtained was clear. They wanted, so all these stakeholders requested more clarity. They asked for clear definitions and concrete examples of the prohibited practices. And what the Commission did, so they did listen this, and they published these non-binding guidelines, which explicitly shape how the rules would be interpreted and how the rules will be enforced. So it doesn't change the headlines of the law, of the policy, but it shapes the implementation reality. And let's go to the last example for today. This was on the Cyber Resilience Act. This one was shaped by different actors, but one of the one that I would like to focus today is the open source community, because the CRA had a lot of controversial between the open source community, but I think that at the end, based on the different means, the different channels, where different stakeholders from the open source ecosystem participated, they were able to change significant things. For example, the open source software steward concept, this new role claimed by the foundations proposed between these individual developers and commercial actors. Also, the part of the exception of non-commercial open source software. And well, other changes that were really relevant for the CRA to be a more workable framework for the open source community. So public consultation play a role also in this case, but with this slide, I want to say that there are also other means, complementary ways for stakeholders to participate in and provide feedback to the Commission so that they can co-design the rules and co-implement the different rules and policy with the Commission. So the last slide, please, Diana. I want us to have some key takeaways from this review on different examples on public consultations and the changes resulted from them. My key messages would be first, that timing beats volume, in the sense that early input at the draft stage can be more influential than, for example, after late lobbying. For example, late lobbying. So when text is already locked, politically locked, this is more difficult to influence there. Second, be specific. So the more specific, the better the outcome. Try to avoid general comments, but propose specific changes on specific clauses. And last but not least, in Europe, implementation tools are also policy because the guidance, the model clauses, the standards, they also shape the law at the end. So that would be it from my side. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I think at the end we will be able to tackle them.
That's correct, Juncal. Thank you for this great overview and examples, of course. Now we'll get into more details. Alberto, the floor is yours.
Although the camera is behaving a bit weird, right?
Yeah, it is. Okay, now it's good. Now it's looking
better. Let me try again with the right. Nah, now it works. Okay, so it's me. It's actually me. So yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you to Juncal for the introduction. I think it was very interesting. And from my side, the main recommendation that Juncal has provided, I think it makes a lot of sense. So early feedback in the whole process of policymaking, it's what we always found more interesting and more worthy of investing our time, especially as a smaller company. So we don't have a stable. Well, we have a team in Brussels, but they're not fully devoted to lobbying in the good sense. But yeah, from our perspective, it has always made more sense to engage with the European Commission as the body that has the legislative initiative in the whole process, than later on engaging with the more complex process that follows after, through the ordinary legislative process and the trialogues and the interaction between the Parliament, the Council, and the Commission later on. So today, what I brought to you is an example, not of our contribution to this consultation for secondary law for one of them for a legal act, but our participation in a consultation for a communication of the Commission. So in this case, the European Open Digital Ecosystems, which is a strategy that the Commission launched in January and is open or was open for consultation and for feedback from the community a few weeks ago. And also to stress the importance not only to focus on the main files, on the main pieces of legislation at EU level, so regulations and directives and all these ones that go through the drama of having them approved in a room after meetings, hours of meetings in the Parliament, but also the smaller pieces of a strategy, of sometimes decisions, opinions, different kinds of pieces that are produced at the EU level, specifically in this case by the Commission, that have potentially a big impact on our lives and in our sectors. In this case, the European Open Digital Ecosystem strategy is a communication that's linked with the upcoming Cloud and AI Development Act. So this is also important, and we thought it was important to offer our opinion here. So as you might have heard of this communication, this strategy before, it's a re-evaluation of the Commission's approach to open source in a context that has changed a lot in the last few years. It is very interesting as well because it's a joint exercise between DigiDigit that, as I will explain in a second, produced the previous strategy, and DigiConnect, which is, as you know, more used to engage with industry and changes in the market. So this document was really interesting. I will explain in a second how this can be or could be, these kind of documents can be influenced before they are produced by the Commission, while the consultation is open, and then even afterwards. So next slide, please. Okay, so as was mentioned there before, this initiative is a re-evaluation, a new improved version of with a larger scope of the previous open source software strategy 2020-2023. If you've seen this document before, this was produced by DigiDigit with kind of an inwards ambition inside the Commission. It still was very interesting. From the cloud perspective, for instance, it already identified that open source as a key element for sovereignty, how important open source technologies in cloud were going to be, for instance, against the positioning, the unbalanced positioning of hyperscalers in the market. So even if it was produced by DigiDigit, they were really aware and very well connected with the larger discussions that we were having in industry around digital sovereignty, for instance, and the role of open source. All this has become now in this current strategy proposal much more clear, much more explicit. So the next slide, please. So in there, you might have seen in early January that the Commission published this proposal and opened the process for collecting feedback from industry or from individual EU citizens. In our case, I will explain a bit how we participated and the strategy that we followed. This, as you will see, received a lot of feedback. So now the challenge also for the Commission is to manage and process all this. But it was really successful, this consultation. And as I said, it happened for this, but you can actually go online on the Have Your Say portal and then follow different topics and get also regular updates and emails letting you know when a new consultation on a specific area has been published by the Commission. So that's actually quite useful to follow the topic you're interested in. Next one, please. Okay, so how this kind of strategies, this kind of initiatives, how can you as a company influence them? Again, in the good sense, like lobbying. I use lobbying in the good sense as you used to have. So lobbying in the sense of making sure that if you have an opinion about a piece of legislation or some strategy that's going to affect your business, or if you're an individual, things are going to affect yourself personally, you have the right, and I could say you have the obligation to actually tell the legislators or the policymakers that what you think about this piece of legislation or this initiative. As a company, in our case, what we think is a good recommendation is obviously those of you interested in these topics: cloud, edge, open source, sovereignty. join the working groups that we have in the Nexus Forum initiative. Specifically, we have a working group on sovereignty and open source, and that's why within the research and innovation roadmap that we produced, and there's a new version ongoing under review now. There isn't a specific area for open source where you can also incorporate your opinions in the next version that we will produce by the end of the first semester. Another way you can contribute, specifically you are into the cloud market, is next slide. The European Alliance for Industrial Data Edge and Cloud that you can see here in this slide. That's an initiative that's also open to all European companies. You have to go through some kind of vetting process by the Commission to make sure that your company is based in the EU, etc. But it is actually a forum for industrial actors in the sector that want to contribute and provide direct feedback to the Commission through, for instance, thematic roadmaps on specific topics. For instance, on co-investments or strategies or priorities for co-investment in some specific areas within the market. So, for instance, in a few months ago, we submitted to the Commission a thematic roadmap about open source that identified already a number of challenges, like, for instance, the need to reinforce the governance of open source projects led by European companies and European organizations and so on. So, and that's in the next slide that you can see. You can actually go online and find this document that we produced. And in our case, we co-led the production of this document in collaboration with other companies coming from the European market. So all this came before the strategy was published by the Commission and open to public consultation. Once that happens, then obviously the direct mechanism is through the portal where we will see in the next slide. For each of these, you at the end of the process, you can see how many people provided feedback. It's actually very simple. So you will find that it's basically an online form where you can attach some documents or not, but basically a text a box for your text where you can actually send some direct feedback to the Commission. You will need to sign up with your EU account, but that's pretty easy. And then at the end, the Commission produces also some summary of how many people participated. So in this case, as you can see, they received quite a lot of feedback. So quite impressive. We contributed to the one from Spain. So that's the 7th position in the poll. So as you see, quite a lot of distribution as well from different member states. So it was, I think it's actually overall quite a big success for the consultation process. So I will bring you our specific example. So what we submitted to the Commission was the answer to the questions that they posed to people. So the consultation was basically explaining what the strategy is, the context, but also posing a specific number of questions to people. In our case, we decided to follow the suggestion and provide an answer to each of their questions. Also, under our understanding is this will help the Commission process all this feedback. You will see if you navigate through the website, you will see that people produce or submit feedback in many different ways, in many different formats. Our approach was kind of more structured, so I hope it will be easy for them to process as well. And as Juncal also mentioned, be specific. So it's not about the amount of things that you say in your opinion to the Commission. It's about being very clear in what you are exposing there, the reasons why you're doing that, maybe some action points that they can take, some actionable proposals that the Commission could also incorporate. So yeah, try to be specific, and if they already suggest a specific structure for your feedback, try to follow that. So it sounds pretty basic, but you will see that many people don't do that. So next one, please. So another thing that we did in this case, and I think it's also valid for others, is try to get other people to know what you're actually proposing to the Commission, especially if the consultation process is still open. So others might decide to support your proposals or part of your proposals through the consultation itself. So in this case, that was me in this case, but for instance, you can use your social media, your professional social media to explain that you've participated in this consultation process. You can link to your documents, explain a bit why, let people know what exactly you have proposed to the Commission, in the expectation that maybe some other organizations, some other companies, they will say, okay, I actually agree with this stuff, so I will just maybe copy and paste and do some minor makeup to the text, and will be basically the same concept. So in the end, it's all about reinforcing. If you think you have valid and legitimate opinions and expectations for these initiatives, just share that with the rest of the community, the rest of your sector, and you might get some additional support. And the Commission will see that also across different submissions. So it's perfectly valid. Also, if you are part of some sector-specific communities or ecosystems, like in our case, in this case, this submission was very relevant for the open source community of the Open Forum Europe open source community. We also we use that mailing list to let everyone know that we had submitted this opinion, what our opinion was. We got some positive and feedback and negative feedbacks, but the important thing is that there was a lively discussion within this mailing list, and hopefully some people that agreed with the opinion supported it through their own submissions. Maybe others disagreed and submitted the opposite opinion. Who knows? But that's the game. And finally, the final slide is just to more generic in that sense. So independently of whether it is actually a legal act or a non-legal act, an implementing or delegated act, I mean, there are different ways, as Juncal mentioned, to be listened by the Commission or other institutions in the policymaking process. It's always good to try to join forces with other companies that might share your views. So in our case, for instance, we are founding members of the European Sovereign Tech Industry Alliance that was launched a few months ago, precisely with this intention to mobilize different companies from different sectors that have a special sensitivity for digital sovereignty. Because we understand that together, obviously, we are stronger in pushing for what we think is the right thing to do across the whole process. But as Juncal mentioned, as it gets more and more complex, as the initiatives moves through the pipeline, sometimes you need more muscle, especially if you're a small company. Later in the process, if you want to, I mean, when things get to the Parliament and the Council, you need more muscle there. You need to actually look for allies that have permanent representation in Brussels, that can actually are used to meet with the cabinets of different commissioners or the MEPs or members of the permanent representatives of different member states. So it's always good for you to identify within your sector, but also across sectors, depending on what's your main interest and your main sensitivity for these things, which is the right organization for you to join forces with other companies. So you can make sure that you can also indirectly influence, provide feedback later in the legislative process. So that's with my description today of our approach and how we did things in this specific case, and what we think is the right approach to other initiatives, legislative or non-legislative. So yeah, thank you to you for your attention, and any question you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Alberto, thank you very much. And I think that this was a really great addition also to what Juncal said, providing also additional examples, but also some sort of a wider overview on the importance of these public consultations, but also ways that stakeholders can actually join forces and engage together to create more impact. As Alberto mentioned, now is the time to raise your hand if you have any questions. In the meantime, while you come up with your question or the courage to raise your hand, I would like to ask both Alberto and Juncal, since you both kind of participated in these public consultations, to just kind of mention like the very practical aspect of it. How does it look like to fill it out? Like how much time did it take? Did you find the process complicated? Did you find the process of finding the right public consultation complicated or very straightforward? Alberto, perhaps you can go first.
Yeah. No, I think for instance, the have you say portal is quite straightforward, as I said. So it's basically once you have you log in, the process is quite simple. I haven't mentioned there is a fundamental, the basic challenge when you answer to one of these consultations that I haven't addressed is that you need to put your opinion together. So you need to have an opinion. So sometimes for some companies that's a challenge because it requires maybe an exercise to analyze the whole context or things that they might not be familiar with. So yeah, the process itself of submitting your opinion or your feedback is pretty straightforward. The process by which a company gets the final text that wants to submit to the commission, that might be a bit more tricky sometimes. But yeah, it's always interesting. You don't need to, as I said, you don't need to provide a lot of stuff. Maybe you have a very clear opinion about something, some specific element in that initiative. That's what you want to offer your opinion about. It doesn't have to be an opinion about the whole thing. So, but yeah, internally, especially for the first time, so it's always a challenge to say, okay, who within the company has actually to agree that this is the right thing that we're going to have on this portal, which is public in the end. So that's also a challenge for the first time.
I see. Juncal, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I would say it depends also on the type of public consultation. As Alberto already mentioned, sometimes it's an open, let's say, consultation where you can provide your feedback in different formats, in different ways. I would say this is the most easy or the one where you can really, let's say, put the focus on what it's important for you. Then usually the ones based on questionnaires, these are also pretty much straightforward, but maybe it is more difficult to put the emphasis on what really matters to you or where you would like to really have an influence. But I would say that the process is pretty much straightforward. In either ways, they ask for the feedback. I mean, even if it is open feedback or it is more guided one. Yeah, and I also agree with Alberto that maybe the latest phases where you really want to see your text there, this is the most difficult part. But providing feedback and trying to influence from the beginning, this is doable. And I also have to admit to agree with Alberto that it's not it's an obligation, I would say, for all of us, because at the end we need to live with these rules that we are, if possible, we would like to build together. So yeah, my call to action would be, let's try to participate in these initiatives.
Thank you, Juncal. I would just like to add a follow-up question. So, in Nexus Forum, we are creating this innovation roadmap. We have industrial players, research players. We also kind of try to get their feedback. Well, maybe not in a similar manner to public consultations, but they kind of have these different insights, different views on the very same topics that are important for us in this digital ecosystem. When it comes to the policy consultations, what do you think that it's more important to obtain, like the feedback from the industrial players or the research ones? Juncal?
Sorry, so you mean which is more relevant? I mean, I
Or
think
is there one that is actually more more relevant?
I mean, I can't say that. I mean, everyone is relevant to participate there, to be honest. I mean, we need the different stakeholders there to participate. They, we need the view and the experience and the evidence because, as Alberto said, also sometimes the Commission asks for evidence. This is the calls for evidence in order to show the European Commission, the policy makers, the rules makers there, that we need changes or that some things need to be amended in order that they work accordingly to the needs of the different stakeholders. So I cannot go for one or other.
No, I agree completely.
I'm going to
Albert,
pick, I'm going to pick sides.
okay.
Okay,
I'm going to see
play
the
that role, Alberto. Go ahead.
I'm going to say that the non-industrial feedback is more important. Not the feedback itself, but the fact
Mhm.
that you get it. So getting feedback from other entities or people than industry representatives, I think that's the challenge, and it's really important because in many of these, I mean, many of these stakeholders, unlike companies, they don't have people, they don't get paid for submitting this feedback or trying to influence the EU institutions or the legislative process. So companies, to a certain degree, they might have people, teams devoted to produce this feedback and influence
Mhm.
this legislation. Academics or civil society, individual citizens, they do that most of the times at their own expense. So I think it's important to encourage and thank these people for their efforts.
I think you just might have identified a gap, Alberto. Okay, so as we are nearing the end of this webinar, what I would also like to mention is that within our project, we actually have 10 thematic working groups. Within these groups, we are actually gathering experts from both industrial and research side to provide knowledge sharing, their insights and inputs on the innovation roadmap that we are creating. If you are interested in joining any of these working groups, we would love to have you. You can do it either through the website eucloud.edgeiot.eu or by scanning this dinosaur QR code. Anyway, we are very happy that we got to host you today. We hope that we have shed some light on the process of the public consultations. We are also very active, not only online, but also offline. After 3 big summits in Brussels, 1 event in Japan, we are now also organizing an event in South Korea. So there is let's say, an additional prompt to joining our working groups and the colleagues that you might encounter in our ecosystem. I would like to thank you for being with us today and check with Alberto and Juncal if there is anything else that they would like to add. Okay.
I think from my side, just to invite everyone to participate in these processes and obviously join us in the working groups.
Thank you, Alberto. Juncal?
Yeah, no, nothing else from my side. Thank you very much for the invitation and for joining today. And yeah, also please join the working groups.
Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very much to those that have stayed until the end with us. Soon we will have some new webinars, presentation of the working groups. So stay tuned. Thank you very much and have a good day.